Hey everyone, welcome back. This is Alex Graham, Grow Time Hydroponics and Supply. This is our third Facebook Live event. We started out meeting the owners. That was me, Alex, and Stacy. Stacy's not joining us today. She just got me. I'm flying solo. Last week we did system types, an introduction to the 6 main system, actually 7. We went over 7 system types that we use here in the store. More introductory types for the beginners. This is our beginner series of videos. Today we're going to talk about lights. I'm going to wait just a few moments. Hopefully a few more people will join us. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to attempt to pull up the comments so that way I can kind of see what's going on while I'm talking. So bear with me. One thing I do want to say at the beginning of this, I know there's only 3 of you watching, but hopefully somebody can help me out. We're going to do a little bit of participation. I want you guys to, in the comments, tell me, when do you think the first grow light was used or invented? Don't Google it, just kind of take a wild guess. I think you'll really be surprised. What year was the first grow light or artificial light produced for growing indoors? So we've got one more joining us. I see a guess. We have 1903. That's actually really close. Let's see if anyone else wants to take a guess. We'll give it just a few more minutes. Hopefully some people will join us. All right. So I got my comments pulled up. I'll be checking those periodically throughout the video. But today let's talk a little bit about grow lights, light setups. We're going to focus on 2 main types today. That's your fluorescent and your LED lights. That's because we feel for beginners and home growers, 1915, that's also really, really close. But we feel like fluorescents and LEDs are the easiest for those home growers, the people that we normally come in contact with at Grow Time. So that's what we're going to talk mostly about today. There are plenty of other lights. There are, the high pressure sodium lights. There's going to be your metal halide, your ceramic metal halide. Those are, for now, we're going to leave those to the pros. Those are for your big grows, commercial operations. They're huge, expensive lights. But for your home grows, your fluorescent and your LEDs are going to be the most cost efficient. They're going to be the cheapest off the bat to buy. They're going to last you the longest. And they're not going to blind you. Most importantly, lights are damaging to your eyes. So let's take a moment to talk about fluorescents. So there's 2 main type of fluorescent lights. You're going to have your tube style lights, and then you're going to have the lights that are going to screw right into your socket. They look kind of like a normal light bulb, both of which we have here at Grow Time, and I'll show you what they look like in use, or in the package rather, for the screw-on type. And then for your LEDs, that actually stands for light emitting diode. So that means there's individual tiny little diodes, and together they make your LED light. And those can be your white lights, your blue lights, your red lights. Let's talk about the spectrum before we move on. So there are different light spectrums. You have your wavelength. Your blue light is more for your veg, your green, if you want leafy greens, your herbs, your spices, things like that. Now, if you ever want to produce flowers and you want to eventually have fruit, because in order to have fruit, you have to have flowers, you do want to go towards your red light. And that kind of makes sense. If you think about it, the natural light as you go into the fall, that's when you start getting that more red tone in the air. And that kind of coincides with normally when you'll get flowers on a plant and fruit and things like that. So when we look at some of the LEDs, you'll notice that some of them are blue and some of them are red and some of them are actually white. They do produce a ton of light for very little energy. People oftentimes think that if you run a grow light indoors that you're going to see it on your electric bill. You might, but it'll just be a tiny little blip. Things have become so efficient in the last 10 years. It's just like running any other light bulb. And not only that, but they'll last you like 10,000 hours. So let's go ahead. I'm going to switch this around. Sorry about the tiny little bit of awkwardness. All right. So this one right here is actually a tube style fluorescent light. This is actually a big no-no. We need to fix this. We have got so much growth within our tower that our plants are actually touching the lights. We need to actually move them out a few inches. Your fluorescent light should be about 3 inches off from your plants. It's not going to hurt them. Notice, like, we have leaves growing right up on these lights, and it's because they're cool to the touch. Your LEDs, which are, over here, we'll talk about soon, they give off heat. And with that heat is sometimes comes burning your plants. When I first started out, trying to grow seedlings and stuff, I tried to grow them under a very high intensity, powerful LED light, and I couldn't figure out why, none of my leafy greens were doing anything or growing or flourishing. It was because they were so hot. They never got a chance. So your fluorescent lights are really great for whenever you're starting your seedlings, for your vegetation. They're not going to do a whole lot for your blooming. So if you're looking to get flowers and eventually fruit, or just a flower, that's not going to be your best option. What's actually going to be your best option in that case is something like this. This is an LED light. I'm going to see if I can't get you guys a peek. All right, there you go. So you can actually see the different colors up under there. Notice there's the white ones, and then there's also the red ones. The red ones are what's actually allowing these pepper plants to flower. And whenever they flower, that's when you get the fruit. Let me see if I can show you guys one down here. There we go. There's actually a few of them on here. So this one up front is a Thai chili. In the back, we think that's just a hybrid, like kind of a bell pepper type. They're long and skinny though. They are turning red. So we'll see how that tastes when it gets done. But we have a few different kinds in here. But again, the point is you need that red light to flower so that way you can have fruit, and you can actually get the plant to do what you want it to do. The other thing to note about the lights is, how far above the plant do you want it to be? So something like this, an LED, high intensity, this is a 1,000-watt light. It's pretty bright. It gives off heat. If I put my hand under it, I can feel it. You don't want it to be right up on the plant. Notice this pepper back here? It's actually been scorched. The light was too close to it for too long. So what happened was it kind of scorched it a little bit. So I moved the light up. It's doing well. It's got a nice little distance. I've been also pruning the pepper plants so they don't get any taller. We want to keep them at this height just to make sure that we can get a nice even coverage of the light, because we have 4 different pepper plants in here, so it gets a little crowded. And then another type of LED light is this one. So you can't really see it. It's kind of reflecting. But in addition to the red light in there, there's actually some blue lights. And something real neat about this LED light, and something you could do for many different lights, is you can actually switch and tell it what type of light to give. So that's actually going to be your bloom. That's going to be your veg. It's blue. And then if you do full spectrum, which is what we have it on, it'll do a little bit of both. So we've already got strawberries in here. They're flowering. I've left it on the full spectrum. They're already bloomed. I've got fruit turning out, so that's why I've got it on there. But the point is it might not be a bad idea if you have a wide variety of plants to get something that can switch from your veg to your bloom. I'm going to take a walk. Let's go to the other side of the building. We got some more lights over here. Anyone who's joined us who hasn't, figured out what those dates are in the comments, I've actually put out, without Googling, see if you can tell me when the first grow light was invented, or used rather. A light that was used on plants instead of sun, or mimic the sun, basically. So we've got 1903 and 1915, which are both really close at this point. Alright, so over here, we've got some of those bulb style fluorescent lights. So it's just like the tubing one that we saw, but this one will screw right into any, light socket that you already have. It's 13 watt. A lot of times people pay so much attention to the watt that they don't realize that that's not really what matters. The 6400 right here, 6400K, that is actually your magic number. If you're ever looking at a grow light and you don't see a number this high, I would say look somewhere else. Pretty much all the lights that we deal with have that 6400K, even our T5, which is those tube lights right here that I showed you earlier. We mainly have these smaller LEDs. We have some bigger ones like I showed you in the tent, and then we have one that's kind of mid-sized that I really like. It's set up over here on our lettuce. So the reason I like this is because, again, it has this switch up here. Let me show you. So right now we've got it on your leafy greens. So it's off if we turn them both off. Turn on your leafy greens, you get that blue light. You turn on your bloom and you get a red light. And I think you can kind of see up under there. Another thing to note about your lights and your light spacing, I know I mentioned you don't want to get them too close. Let me show you what happens when you get an LED light too close to a plant. You see this tip burn on this lettuce? How it's a little bit crinkled up. Doesn't look like this one. This one looks nice and healthy. It's because this one actually got too close to the light. It burnt it. It's tip burn. I didn't move it up fast enough. But now I know for next time. I won't let it happen again. There's all different sizes of these lights. So this is just a little tiny baby one. This one is the one that it all started out with when I first began growing. When I figured out that 1000 watt was too big and too bright and hot, I switched to this one. A little 45 water. As you can see, there's those blue and red and white diodes. You can kind of switch them up based on what you're trying to do. This one actually comes with a nice neat little remote, which I like. I think I've got this one in veg. Yeah, I do. You can switch it over to full spectrum. It gets a little brighter, gives it a little more of that white light. Or if you're trying to bloom, which we're not, we've got lettuce in here and the catnip over here is already bloomed, so we're not worried about that. You get that red. One of the things to note about your lighting is not only do you want to not get it too close, but you don't want to get it too far away either. So this is my lavender, and you can see that one of them just got real tall. That's actually called being leggy. So this plant was reaching for the sun. It was actually in this yellow tub over here and surrounded by so much catnip. It wasn't getting enough light, so it was getting real tall and leggy, and it's actually started to, basically what it's trying to do is flower and give us seeds, which is what any plant will do. Even this lettuce, it didn't get enough light here on the end, so it's starting to bolt, which means eventually it will shoot up real tall, it'll flower and give us seeds. But these ones in the middle, they're nice and neat, bunched together. They're getting the proper amount of light. I do see a comment. I apologize if you're going to discuss a bit, but I want to do trays of microgreens and what would be the best style of light. So the cool thing about microgreens is they actually don't need a ton of light. When they do get light, these tube T5 fluorescent or even T8 fluorescent lights, which are a little bit more intense than the T5s, those are going to be your best bet. The thing about microgreens is they actually need a blackout period. So whenever you start them, depending on what you're doing, for the most part, it's about 3-4 days. You put your seeds down on your tray, you make sure it's watered and everything, and you put another tray on top of it and you weigh it down and you put it in the dark. That's the blackout period. That's what will actually cause those seeds to germinate. And they'll germinate, and they're so dense in that tray that they'll start to push the tray that's on top. They'll start to push it up. You won't have to do anything. After about 3, 4, 5 days, depending on what you're growing, you can lift that top tray off and you'll expose it to the T5 type lights. You don't need anything much stronger than that. And it will actually give it that color that you're used to. So it might look a little weird when you take the tray off for the first time and you're like, what did I get myself into? No, it's normal. The light is what gives your plants the color. So until they get that light, they don't have the color to make them look like real little tiny plants. They just look like weird seedlings until then. I hope that helps, Sharon. If anyone else has any questions, I'm definitely here to talk about them. So let's go ahead and let's talk about the first grow light. So the first grow light was our artificial light for plant growing, was produced in 1868, which I was super surprised by. He's a Russian botanist by the name of Andrei Faminsin. So he actually saw a need to produce a light similar to the sun. So grow lights, all they're doing is they're either doing one thing. They're either mimicking the sunlight, or they're being specified for the type of plant that you're growing. Like I just said, sometimes you want to grow things that'll flower. For that instance, you want those red LED lights or any type of a red spectrum. Another thing to look for when you're in the market for a light is it should have a spectrum. So almost any light that you deal with will have a chart like this, and it'll kind of tell you what type of light and the rays that you're getting. So this one is better for your blue light and your green light and your veg. As it gets over into the red, there isn't much. It is a full spectrum light, so it will work. You'll just get better results with something else. But they all kind of have that spectrum. The reason I like the LED up in the front that I started with, the Mars Hydro light, is because you can adjust the brightness. So there's a little dial on it, and for instance, when I transplanted those peppers, we thought they weren't going to make it. I was able to turn down the intensity on the light so it didn't stress the plant so much, so they had a chance to recover, which is really nice. Whereas if you have something like these up behind me, these are also 1000 watt LED, very, very similar to the Mars Hydro. They don't have a dimmer. So it's important when you're dealing with those kind of lights, like prolonged exposure and looking at the lights is bad for your eyes. So if you're in a grow room, you're dealing with a grow tent, something like that, please wear glasses. They're really cheap. They're like they have a green or a blue film, and I can show you them when we go back up front. So definitely take a look at those if you'll have some prolonged exposure. I do have one more different light type in here, which is my favorite for germinating the seeds. And this is also just a low-level LED. This one is 19 watt. I start all my seedlings with this one. Notice how I've got the tray, I don't know, about 5 inches from the light. I'll have to probably take these out of this tray soon because they'll get too tall for everything else. But other than that, it all tends to stay about the same height at the seedling stage. If your lights get too close, like this one was actually touching it today, move it up because you'll get that tip burn, just like that, which you don't want. You want your seedlings to start out strong. You got to give them a good chance. Alright guys, I'm going to show you these glasses. I think we're going to open up the floor for some discussion. We'll see if anyone else has any comments. If not, we'll probably be on our way for the day. So here are these grow lights or the sunglasses that I was talking about. Let me see if I can open them up for you. So these ones are blue. So they don't tint anything. They just kind of change the spectrum that's coming to your eyes. Makes it a little bit easier on your eyes. Alright guys, I don't see any other comments. Thanks for joining. This video will be available very soon. Hey, I see something else. One of these days I'm going to do a road trip to come see y'all. Thanks guys. Awesome. Yeah, I'm from Lake County, born and raised. Left when I was 18 though. Hey Terry, what do you recommend for houseplants? What spectrum? It depends on what you're trying to grow. You know what? I got one more light. You just reminded me. So Miss Terry actually came in and got one of these grow frames, which is a little more decorative. It does the job just fine. You know, it's gonna give you the 4000 K. It's gonna be a full spectrum, and this one is more of a natural white light. She uses this for her houseplants, and so far it has been perfect. I know she's been giving me tons of feedback. Another new thing that this could be used for that's actually turning to be really popular is living green walls. If you guys haven't seen them, Google it. It is super cool. You can actually do it hydroponically and automate everything on your wall, so you just kind of turn it on a timer and make sure the reservoir doesn't run out of water. And you can have an indoor growing wall. It's insane. People do it with food. They do it with decorative, like houseplants and stuff. They do it with all kinds of stuff. So that's pretty cool. Let's see. Yeah. This one's an LED 3 setting. Full spectrum. Alright. So really though, okay. Love it for my houseplants. My cactuses are going crazy. So yeah, Terry, another thing that she's done recently, since she's got that grow light, is she's been able to propagate a lot of her succulent and cacti and things like that she never got a chance to before. And she swears by this rapid rooter. Ask her how many new plants she's made from this rapid rooter. It's pretty cheap too. Come see us. I think you'll be surprised with the results. All right, guys. I don't see any other comments. I'm here. Call me, text me, send me an email. Ordering at growtimehydroponics.com. Go visit our website, growtimehydroponics.com. It will open up with like a Facebook message automatically. Me and Stacy are always hooked to it. We're happy to answer any questions you have. Terry, I have a whole new outlook on propagating with that quick starter. Yes, I love your pictures that you send. It brings me so much joy to know that you get happiness from it. Thanks, Kimberly. It's good to have you. Thanks for joining us, everyone. I look forward to seeing you guys next week. Next week, we actually get to start seeds, which I love. It's kind of like a labor of love. When I first started seeds, I wasn't very good at it. I've learned so many tips and tricks, and I'm excited to kind of just set up and start some seeds with you guys and just walk you through the process, show you what works for me, talk about, you know, some ways to keep your seedlings healthy, things like that. So thanks so much. Have a good night, guys.